Can you smell the fresh cut grass? Did you hear the sound? The sound of that bat knocking the ball out of the park. Yes, baseball season is here. We are underway with the new baseball season, and there's a lot of implications for the sports card market as to what that might mean. Today, I've got a special guest on the Geoff Wilson Show. It is Ryan Curtis. You may know him as I Saw Sasquatch on Instagram or the Sasquatch Collection on YouTube. He's a great content creator, and we're going to talk about the MLB season and what that might mean with the card market in the upcoming months. We're also going to hear more about his story, how he got into content creation, how he likes to collect, and how he is getting his kids involved in the sports card hobby. A lot to glean from this episode, so let's go ahead and get started with the Geoff Wilson Show. Ryan, welcome to the studio. Welcome to the Geoff Wilson Show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here today, and it's fitting because we are recording this on opening day. Of course, this is airing the week, baseball season will be going on for a few days by the time this episode comes out, but we're here at the start of the baseball season. You're in your Cubs jersey, showing some enthusiasm for your team.
Yeah.
And this is always a fun time for the sports card market.
Absolutely.
You've got a lot of speculation that's taken place in the offseason. A lot of people that were investing maybe in different prospects or players who they felt like were going to have maybe breakout campaigns this year. And now everybody gets to figure out if those bets are right,
Right.
or if they're wrong. And
Right.
they got to figure out if they're going to fall flat on their face with their investments, or if maybe they picked correctly and they're going to see a boost to their cards as this season goes on. Who are you buying this offseason? Right off the bat, I'm curious. Were there any prospects who you had your eyes on, or maybe it's any just players who you thought we're gonna have a good year this year?
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a Karen, but I mean, I went after Holiday. He's the Orioles right now. It's still peculiar to look at them as a formidable organization, but they are. Like, they've been building it correctly for a long time now, and so them, and then from the Cubs perspective, we're big Christopher Morel household right now. So.
Okay. And so Jackson Holiday, so he's not on the opening day roster,
Correct.
But he's getting called up at some point this year. That's the presumption.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
Yeah, and so the Orioles are interesting because I think that, obviously you've got Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holiday. You've got a trio of young stars that are very collectible, that have come out of products, from recent years.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the equivalent to, like, in football, if you had a team that had a young star quarterback, a young star running back, a young star wide receiver. I'm trying to think of a team that I'm not sure any team in the NFL really fits that criteria.
No, everyone's trying to land on
Everyone's
it.
trying to
Everyone
land
wanted that to be the Chargers, I think.
Yeah.
Under Herbert and bringing in Eckler and some of these other younger guys. But
yeah, that's not panned out that way. And those guys aren't even on the team anymore,
Right.
Other than Herbert. But
Right.
you've got that trio of highly collectible, highly sought after players whose cards were in the last couple of years of products. Either their prospect cards or their rookie cards. And I like that angle with the Orioles because of the fact that I think because they have such a young nucleus of star talent, I could see them being very relevant for a very long time.
Yeah.
This could be a team that if they can keep that trio together and build around them, obviously they got to get, really good pitching as well is critical. Having three, good bats in the lineups and not going to matter much unless you're pitching solid.
Right.
But if they're able to successfully build around those guys and continue to improve as an organization, this is a team that could be contending for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and I love their story, similar to what I liked about Detroit from this last year. You have this devout fan base who has just gone through the worst years, and they keep showing up, and they keep showing up. So it's good to see a team, especially in the American League East, which has been largely controlled by the Yankees and the Red Sox, to see a team like this loyal fan base finally get fed. And they should be for a long time. I love this for them.
It has to make the Yankees and Red Sox furious.
Yeah.
That the Orioles are on this rise. The Rays are consistently great in that division.
Yeah.
Even though their payroll is consistently a fraction
Everyone sleeps on them.
of the Red Sox and Yankees, but they're consistently great, and they have been for a long time. And then the Blue Jays have been pretty solid as well.
They're so good.
And they got good young talent on that team.
They signed Ohtani for a second, if you remember that. Remember when that news broke?
That's what everyone thought.
Ohtani was supposed
he was
to
having dinner. He had rented out some
Right.
private room for dinner in Toronto, right? Yeah.
That's another great young squad. You have
It is.
Bichette and
Vlad Guerrero Jr. Yeah. You got a lot of young talent on that team too.
I love it. Seeing just not the usual suspects, or at least, as I was talking about earlier, a good disruptor in that division. I love seeing that. But I think that the Orioles and the Blue Jays are legit, and the Rays are legit contenders.
Yeah, the only problem is they all have to battle each other.
That's
right.
right.
They got to battle each other, and then they got to battle the Yankees and the Red Sox. And
Right.
so obviously only so many teams can come out of that division. So that's going to always present a challenge. But I do like the Orioles in general as a longer-term bet. I like a longer-term bet on some of these guys,
That's
like
right.
Jackson Holliday, as you said, because if he doesn't get it done this year, if the team doesn't get it done next year, they got the year after, and they got the year after that. I think they're going to have multiple shots at doing something special in the postseason. And of course, one thing that I've seen by studying the baseball card market over the last 5 years is that postseason success can have a pretty direct impact on card prices. You've seen obviously over the years, going back to Juan Soto when he went on his incredible postseason run with the Washington Nationals, and looking at what that did to his card prices, it was incredible. An incredible lift to his card prices. And we see that every year. Every year we see a player, on a team. Obviously Corbin Carroll's stuff was going crazy on the Diamondbacks March, this past year through the playoffs. And so you always see those guys who become the kind of have their breakout moments in October, and then also they have a breakout moment for their sports card prices as well. So could it be some of these younger guys on the Orioles this year? I don't know, but if it's not this year, they're going to again have multiple shots at this. And so whenever that comes about for them, I think that's going to mean good things for their prices, assuming they get that moment, which I believe at some point they will.
And it's almost better that it doesn't happen to them this year. Think about it from a GM's perspective. Contractually now, you can have, the rookie year contract next year versus having to pay everyone at the same time. And that's when it gets kind of cumbersome. We go back to the NFL. I spent most of my life in Indianapolis. I think about a young squad as the Colts. I think early on when they drafted Edgerrin James, Marvin Harrison, Peyton Manning, just back to back to back, you talk about a young squad, but they had to spread that out, and then they had to get creative if they wanted to still be on a contending team with good chemistry. Like Peyton had to take, dial it down on his contract so he could keep Dallas Clark for another year. I think they'll have to do that too, but maybe for Holiday, it might be better for that organization. Again, you talk about the next decade. Contractually, it's probably better that they hold off a year.
Well, the Cubs are your team. Talk to me about the Cubs. Christopher Morel, you mentioned him earlier. In fact, we pulled one of his rookie autograph cards. We were just opening up a box together here inside Cards HQ of Tier 1 baseball, and you got an on-card Christopher Morel rookie, which is fitting because you're a Cubs fan. You said that's your son's favorite player. What's their outlook this season?
Man, I'll tell you, it's a little bit better now that they've secured Bellinger. That was confusing for a while to see where he was going, and everyone thought, I don't know, I have an aunt who's a diehard Yankee fan who erupted in my face. He's coming to us, and I was like, you don't need any more bats. But no, I think they've done a great job with building out their farm system after they kind of depleted it around the last World Series. They had to trade off a lot of people for a lot of temporary pieces. So I think they built their farm system out pretty well again. It's a good blend of vets and rookies, and pitching is always kind of that uphill battle that everyone could do a little bit better on pitching. But I think fielding, and I think at the plate they're going to be formidable this year.
All right, we'll keep an eye on them. I haven't paid a lot of attention to the cards of the players on the Cubs.
Liz, this is because Dansby Swanson left, and then you threw shade on. I get it. It's fine. He's ours now.
Well, speaking of that, the Braves are a team that I'm excited about this year. Yeah. They're my prediction to get to the World Series.
It's hard
this
not
year.
to get behind them. Yeah.
What's your prediction for the World Series?
Braves. I said it. Yeah, I said it earlier.
There you go.
Even as a Cubs fan, I'm just like, you talk about a complete team, a mature team with chemistry. It's as long as they can stay healthy. I know everyone talks about the Dodgers, but I'm like, but you're throwing in really expensive pieces here and there, and they need time to gel. Just like in product management, you have forming, storming, norming, and performing. The Braves are positioned to perform right now, and they just got to stay healthy. And I don't see anyone taking them off that path.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope Acuna's got another great year.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
I mean, they won the World Series without him, though. Remember? So I mean, they can.
We did.
They can.
We did. Yeah, we did.
But they're better with
Matt Olson, unbelievable last year, hitting the power, and a lot of great players on the team. So it'll be exciting. It will be exciting for sure. Well, I'm glad you've got your pulse on the on the baseball market, but I know you collect a lot of different kinds of cards, right?
Sure.
You're not just baseball specific. And you go to a lot of card shows. You've been becoming an increasingly big part of the hobby community in recent years. You've been doing this though for a long time, right? You started collecting when you were what, 5 years old?
Yeah, like I remember going to my first show when I was 5 and collecting mostly baseball and basketball when I was younger, but yeah, so I've always gone to card shows, card shops, things like that. But probably around 2009 is when I jumped on YouTube and started, sharing it with other people outside of, and Instagram more so in the last 3 years.
Okay.
Getting more into like the content creator side versus just mail days and stuff like that. So
You were one of the early sports card content creators then on YouTube, because there wasn't a lot going on with sports cards and YouTube, I don't think, back in 2009.
No, not at all. But it was cool. It was back then when like you hit 1,000 subscribers, it was a big deal. Big deal. Like you were a household name in the sports card industry if you hit 1,000. And now it's just like, ugh.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. I've always been a quality over quantity person anyway, but it had such a rich, strong community. There's a couple of, major people that were pioneering that over there. Shout out to Cards Infinity. He was one of the first people to ever put like his hands behind a camera. And
I heard you shout him out recently in relation to the new Topps Big League cards.
Yeah.
You were advocating, that maybe he should be recognized on a card in the future because of his place in sports card lore.
I genuinely believe, all the different platforms now, TikTok, Instagram, all of it, like it all came back to he was the first person to try it, kick the tires, make a business out of it. No, but it was a really rich community, and it was great. Now YouTube is kind of unrecognizable to me, so that's why I do most of my stuff on Instagram.
Right.
Back then, it was just so much easier to reach out to a person, get into their DMs, and just make connection, make trades, do care packages, things of that nature. It was just totally different, and I think that's what like Instagram feels like more today.
Okay. YouTube has exploded in the hobby. I mean, even so, I started Sports Card Investor in 2019.
Yeah.
And even in 2019, there was a severe lack of sports card related content on YouTube. There were a number of breakers on YouTube and people opening up boxes. That's mainly what the content was on YouTube.
Yeah.
But in terms of people actually talking about cards and looking at the markets and that kind of stuff, it was almost non-existent. There were a few people out there doing it, but it was almost non-existent. And today, and if you think about it, we're only 4 years. I mean, it's been, I guess about 5 years. I guess we're getting to about the 5-year point from when I did my first show, but the landscape has changed dramatically.
So much.
And really in the last 3 years is where you've seen a lot of change. And now on YouTube, there's obviously tons of shows, tons of different content creators, lots of topics being covered.
It's great.
From a lot of different angles. But yeah, it looks a lot different than it used to.
Yeah, it's just mostly like people doing group breaks and box breaks and mail days or rant videos. And now it's evolved and matured a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has. There's a lot of different content choices for people, but a pretty wide community. But you focused more recently over on Instagram. I've noticed you've been going to a lot of different card shows. You've been capturing moments from different card shows. Sometimes interviewing dealers at the shows. Sometimes interviewing, various people there, showing various things at the shows. What is your goal with the content that you create?
Sure. I think there's a ton of great content, a ton of different ways that people are slicing and dicing it. And what I want my brand to kind of exude more so than not is community, positivity, just something different. Like we see enough of these videos, and they're good, don't get me wrong, of people just showing like the same art of the deal, right? If I throw that in the deal, can I get that for this price? I'm like, okay. Now just in another city. All right. I want to help make everyone's world a smaller place in this community, make more connections, and just make it a better overall experience for everyone. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm iterating, just like we talk about in product management. It's like in agile development, you're iterating constantly so you can continue to deliver a better product, and that's what I'm trying to focus on myself. But just I'm trying to find ways to keep it light and funny and approachable. And just creative. I think at the end of the day, we see a lot of videos that pop out. I'm like, listen, if it's not silly or informative, why are we doing this? This is the hobby. And even this is a business for you. If it's not light and informative, like light or informative, probably zoom out and redo it.
Yeah. We have at Sports Card Investor, there's 3 kind of key words that we focus on when we're doing content. So it's educate, entertain, inspire, inform, I guess 4. Educate, entertain, inspire, inform. So the thought process there is like all of our content should really kind of fit into one of those buckets, right? So we do educational content. We do content around Sports Cards 101 and, even like the top 5, what cards are moving in the market and everything like that. There's some educational element to some of that as well. Inform, reporting on hobby news, reporting on the card market, everything like that. Inspire. Inspire is, sharing the joy of collecting. I mean, we do videos where we feature collections from top collectors. We've done our slabs video series on YouTube. Obviously we did a lot of videos with like Marshall Fogel and a lot of the mission that we have behind those videos is to inspire others to see, collections that people have built, and maybe that inspires people to try to build their own collections of whatever their own slant that they want to put on it. And then finally entertain. Like there's definitely room and space to do things that are fun. You do a lot of that type of thing where you try to get have a lighthearted moment, right? And bring some fun and humor to the hobby. And so I think having a purpose for your content is important. And I think that it can kind of give direction to what you're doing. It can allow, it can give you creative direction, and allow you to figure out how you're going to approach new content pieces and kind of put it in an area that the audience will appreciate. Those are the words that we focus on. Everybody has their own spin on, what they want to focus on and what's important. But I think having some direction set is healthy.
Absolutely. And then tip of the cap to you. It's a passion project for me, is protecting the next generation in this hobby, right? I think it's a very, like you talk about landscape from when I was a kid to what it is now. It is fast and furious and super expensive. So like I do try to make it a point too, and I know you do as well, for the kids trade zones and the giving back that you do too. I go to shows when I'm at the other side of the table. I do these like 400 count BCW, shout out to an Indiana based BCW, 400 count boxes of and I'll divvy them up into sports. And I give them out, I call it hashtag for the youths. And I like to give back and just like educate kids along the way. And just like, it's our responsibility, it's our social obligation as ambassadors for the hobby, is to make sure that we can help shepherd the next generation appropriately. And I think that's something that I'm trying to focus on too.
And you've got 2 kids of your own, right?
Yep. Yeah.
How old?
6 and 8 year old boys.
Okay. And they're starting to get a little bit of the collecting bug. They're still on kind of the young end of it, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure just in your house too, like they're going to get the bug earlier because we told them to.
Sure. Yeah.
But no, my oldest is definitely like really into it. And my youngest, he's more into the TCG side of it.
Yeah.
Humor's the sports side of it.
The Pokemon is the gateway drug to sports cards. I feel my all 3 of my kids started with Pokemon.
Yeah.
And then my oldest is completely moved past, Pokemon. He's 13 now, but he's, 1,000% sports cards. My 9-year-old still dabbles in both. He does about equal Pokemon and soccer cards is his thing. Whereas with my oldest, it's football cards. And then my younger girl, who's 7, she's just Pokemon. She's not, she hasn't touched sports cards. Although I'm trying to get her into Lorcana, because although I just heard that the prices of Lorcana have been absolutely exploding.
Really?
Oh, nuts. Unbelievably nuts. The box, like some of the original stuff, some of the first series stuff is tripling, quadrupling in price.
It could be like the one thing I've never touched is Lorcana.
Oh, it's a good product.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. I do think it's interesting. You talk about first editions, how they could be one of the only TCG that has never put like a first edition stamp. I think that's interesting that they didn't do that.
Interesting.
How do you denote what is, other than the year, I guess, on the bottom of the card, probably?
Well, yeah, there was different series, like the first series that came out, the cards that were in them, and different than the second series, different than the third series. I'm sure there's indicators. I don't know. I haven't opened up enough of the product to know. We've got different Lorcana experts here.
Yeah.
Here in the store.
I'm going to ask before I leave, so I can walk out of here smarter.
Ask before you leave. Yeah. I, of course, famously did a video about a year ago where I said that I thought that Lorcana if Disney put their full might behind Lorcana, that was the caveat I gave. I said I thought Lorcana could actually pass Pokemon in popularity. It still has a long way to go, but I will say Lorcana is here to stay. I will say Lorcana has it's been selling really well in Cards HQ. Now, granted, we still obviously sell a lot more Pokemon, but there's also just a lot more Pokemon, period, right? There's way more Pokemon cards. There's way more Pokemon sets. There's way more new Pokemon products that come out. So, of course, we're going to sell more Pokemon. It's got the history. It's got the lineage. But Lorcana is definitely gaining. It's definitely gaining. It's still small compared to Pokemon, but it is starting to gain in terms of market share. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens between those two over the next 10 years.
I'm pro bold statement. So don't dial back on that, except for Will Greer, maybe. But I'm pro bold statement. So I'm with you. Think about on a global scale, Disney is massive. It's never like you could, I mean, the songs transcend every, so it should. It should gain notable steam at some point.
Movies,
but
TV shows.
Pokemon's been here since 98, so like that's going to be hard, market share to pull away from, or why not both, I do think they'll gain more steam. And to your point, like if they keep on throwing more effort, time and capital at it, I think
they are gaining more steam. It's exciting to see. It's good. I like it as a product as well because it appeals to girls. Yeah. It appeals to, there's Elsa cards, there's in fact, the Elsa card is the most valuable card from the first Lorcana.
That makes sense.
Like the number one most valuable card.
Makes
Like
sense.
everyone wants the enchanted Elsa.
Yeah.
That's like the card that everybody's chasing, right? So for there to be a female figure,
that's
a
great.
princess, a Disney princess as the number one most popular card in the first edition of Lorcana, the most valuable card, I think that's a good thing.
That's great.
I like it. So it
It's
gives,
so
I would like my daughter to get more into Lorcana. But Pokemon's great too. And she's into Pokemon.
It's such an approachable price point. You can't be mad at it,
Right.
know, and the fact that you're getting a rare, a holographic in every single pack, that's awesome.
It is one thing that Pokemon does well,
Yeah.
and Lorcana and all those products is the price point.
Mm-hmm.
You can, and I feel, so I'm a big believer that in general, first of all, price points in general for sports card wax needs to continue to become more reasonable. But it has, especially on the baseball side with Topps, it has become more reasonable. Now, there's still some people that are going to point and say like, well, this product used to cost me X and now cost me Y. It's a lot more than it was a few years ago. That's true, fair in a lot of cases. But the fact that you can buy a box of Topps Series 1, for under $100, the fact that you can buy a lot of Topps Chrome and a lot of Bowman Chrome, which has been a big hit. Bowman Chrome U. You can buy a box of Bowman Chrome U football cards for $129, $139
Phenomenal product
for a hobby box where you're getting guaranteed autos, you're getting numbered cards. It's not breaking the bank, the same way that if you were to buy equivalent products from, like, for example, Panini, would break the bank. And so I think my theory is that although the sports card market has seen a lot of, decline in prices over the last couple of years, a lot of people got beat up on what they bought cards for back in 2021 versus what they're worth today. The reason why interest in many ways is actually picking up and is greater today than it was even at times during the peak. And you can look at various factors to prove that. One, for example, just an obvious one, look at the attendance of the National last year. In 2023, the attendance of the National was greater than any National in history. So here we are in 2023. We've gone through 2 years. Well, of course, today's 2024, but I'm reflecting back to the 2023 National. We went through 2 years of sliding prices on sports cards, people getting beat up in the value of their collection, some people losing money, yet more people than ever before turned out to the National. And there's a lot of card shows all over the country that even to this day in 2024 are reporting record attendance numbers at their card shows. The Sport Card Expo, which took place just a few weeks ago in Toronto, it had record attendance. And that's the largest show in Canada, right? It had record attendance here just recently. And so why is that? Well, I think part of the reason is because actually cards and wax have become more affordable. The level of interest today is high, just as the level of interest was high a few years ago. But now people can actually afford to participate more. People can actually afford to to come into a card shop like Cards HQ and to buy a hobby box and sit down and rip it. And especially with Topps products, not feel like they are just getting destroyed financially by doing that, right?
Yeah.
And even the price of singles coming down the way that they've come down means that somebody can come into a shop like Cards HQ. Yeah. They can come in with their kids. They can come in with $100 and they can walk out with a couple of slabs and a couple of raw cards that are pretty decent and buy it all for $100. You know, you get a $40 slab and a $45 slab and a couple of raw cards and a few cards from a value box and walk out of here with $100 and get some nice cards, you know? And that wasn't the case a couple of years ago. You bring $100 into a hobby shop and you're getting a beat up, you know, base Prism, you know, card of somebody is you know.
It was one blaster of 21
correct.
Prism basketball.
Exactly. You get a blaster. You would get a single blaster of Prism basketball with your $100 a couple of years ago. And today you can afford to buy you know, a lot of nice boxes with that, and you know, certainly in a lot of nice singles as well.
Yeah, the state of the hobby again. Like I've gone to Dallas recently, Nashville recently, some of these other bigger ones, and I can remember back in the day when like to get it to a 500 to 700 table show, it might have been once a month. Now you're having multiple in one weekend, and they're all well traveled. So that's really cool to see. And I think a lot of it too is a testament, not just the prices, but like sports fandemonium has never been at the level it is now, you know, globally. So that's super cool. And it's always been relevant in pop culture, but now when you have celebrities entering the space and like the Steve Aokis of the world coming to your shop and like, hey, this is really popular, you should like get up on this train. And just, I don't know. I think the celebrities are good for our industry in increasing that, but the price is going down. I like to remind people too, especially when we're looking at price points on product, is they're hobby boxes, not profit boxes. Mm-hmm. But it is nice that you can get to a price point like that $100 range. When we talk about Series 1, Series 2, what it used to be in hockey, not thanks Bedard, ruined that for us all this year. But yeah, it's great where you can have a chance of breaking even or even doing better. That Bowman U, we talked about that earlier. Gosh, like Topps is crushing it on the college level now. That is licensed. That product should be an annual staple where you just take it to the dome. It's fun, and there's a lot of color, and just it's awesome. I think the state of the hobby is really, really good.
And I think people are going to see the value of Bowman U football, especially here with the NFL draft coming up. I mean, once you see this draft, especially because you're going to get a lot of the quarterbacks, you know, taken high in this draft. Mm-hmm. You're also going to get guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. that are going to get a lot of hype in this draft. Yeah. A lot of skill position players will be taken highly. A lot of those players already have cards in Bowman U, officially licensed, on-card autographs, numbered cards. They're already there on the market. You know, it used to be a few years ago that when the NFL draft came around and a player who you were excited about got drafted by your team, what were your options for their card? I mean, maybe there was like a Leaf or Sage
you hit
unlicensed
Sage,
card.
Aspire, let's go old. Yeah.
That was those were out on the market. Mm-hmm. Maybe Panini would come out with like a Panini Instant. Right. You know, which you still wasn't available on draft night.
CJ Stroud, only auto as a Texan.
Yeah.
Is the Instant.
So but in that case, you would have to place the order for those cards and then they would come weeks later. So there was on draft night, if you were excited and you want to run on eBay and buy a card, there was no good option for that player who was just drafted. This year, there's great options. This year, if your team drafts Drake May, you know, you can go onto eBay and you can find, you know, Drake May autograph, Bowman U officially licensed cards. You could get a number to 25 autograph Drake May.
Really nice quality stuff.
Really good quality stuff, right? Yeah. You could do, I mean, all the guys this year are going to have that. Caleb Williams has had autographs in Bowman U now for a couple of years, and you know, he's going to be the number 1 overall draft pick. So he's going to have a lot of different cards out on the market that are, once again, officially licensed, good quality, you know, major manufacturer, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think you're going to see the popularity in that product only increase, especially as the draft occurs and more people kind of begin to realize how cool it is. And as a baseball collector yourself, I mean, you're used to Bowman prospects.
Right.
First Bowman's been a big deal in the baseball card world forever. Now we've got its equivalent in the football world.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's going to carry the same weight annually, but either way, you have personas like me that I went to USC, and I don't really care where Caleb Williams goes. I just want him in a USC uniform, and like that's it for my PC.
Yeah.
So I think for people like me, it's going to be a great annual staple. Like when Jordan Addison went to the Vikings, I was like, I don't really care where he goes. I have my one card of him at a Bowman U, and leave it there and go to the next class.
There you go. Yeah, I think it's a fun way to collect. And as a college fan, I'm obviously a huge Florida Gator fan.
Yep.
Everyone who watched the show, I think, probably knows that, and probably sick of me talking about the Gators from time to time. But
I'm fine with that.
But the fact that I can get officially licensed cards, the fact we pulled. I was opening up Bowman U here with my son and one of his buddies a weekend or two ago, and he opened up. He got a Graham Mertz, who's the University of Florida quarterback.
Yep.
And it was like a number to 75, and he was in his Gator jersey. He was originally a Wisconsin guy, transferred to the University of Florida before last season, and Bowman U, the new Bowman U, has him in his University of Florida jersey. So as a Gator fan,
amazing.
That's the card I want. I don't know if Graham Mertz is ever going to go on and do anything in the NFL. He's not going to be a highly touted draft prospect, so he may never even get a shot. But even if he does, as a Gator fan, I would rather have his, Bowman U Gator, jersey card versus whatever card he's going to end up in, or whatever jersey he's going to end up in when he goes to the NFL.
Yeah, they're just adding more layers of meaning for all the different personas.
Yeah.
That's one of the great things about our industry is that there's so many different ones that this is just going to add an additional layer of meaning.
Yeah. Yeah, which brings me back to, I guess, kind of an overall point about maybe cards in general, and I think this is something that you believe as well. I believe people should hobby how they like, right?
100%.
The fact that there are more options becoming available to people of all types, not just college cards, but I mean, it's, the world of collecting, the number of cards, the type of cards, it's expanding out in a lot of different ways. And some people look at it, some traditionalists look at it and they say, well, there's too many cards today. There's too many different types of cards, or it's watering it all down, or it's making cards less valuable because there's so many different cards, or it's spreading people's dollars too thin, or it's too confusing for new people to get into it. And look, I think there's some truth in all of those statements. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm a big believer that people should hobby how they want to hobby. Like, buy what you like. If you're into college cards, buy college cards. If you're not into collage cards, ignore college cards.
Just ignore it, yeah.
Just ignore it, right? I mean, there's plenty of products from things that I don't really collect.
Right.
Like, I've never been a big wrestling fan, and so, but I think it's great that there's WWE cards.
You don't strike me as a wrestling fan.
I'm not a big wrestling guy, but you know what? I think it's great. If you're into that, when somebody walks in the store and they're passionate about the rainbow of some wrestler, some WWE wrestler they build in last year's WWE Prism, and they're showing it to me, I don't care about the cards. I care about that person's passion
100%.
And that person's connection and that person's pride in what they've built. That's actually what I care about. Mm-hmm. And so I'll say that's wonderful. That's great. And if that's what you're into, that's fantastic. I'm also not a big UFC guy, but there's a lot of people that are big UFC guys, and UFC's done very, very well in Cards HQ. We sell a lot of UFC. UFC and if there's any surprise in terms of the mix of stuff from when we started this shop, one is probably just how much TCG we've sold. We sold a ton of TCG, but another would definitely be how much UFC we've sold relative to the other sports. We've sold more UFC than I thought we would. It's a good port of our. I mean, it's not close to football or basketball or baseball, but it's still a good portion of our overall sales. And so, hey, if you're into that, collect what you like to collect. I know that's kind of your philosophy as well when it comes to everything, I think, in the sports card world.
Yeah, like you can find your lane and it could cross-pollinate, whatever. Just like find what you're passionate about, find what you have fun in, and just lean into that.
Yeah.
Even if that means you don't like what came out this year, find an old set, chase that, build a set. That's one thing that I do whenever I kind of find like a lull in my own collecting is I'll find a new set and that just like makes it a little more interesting. I'm going to show and I have something new to look for. Just like constantly try to find your fun. There's enough outlets and it's constantly expanding that you can find that. And Yeah, I mean, I'll go back. There are a handful of like true statements you made over there, and I'm like, yeah, I used to super collect Peyton Manning, and I put the rainbows together every year, and there was only this many to do, and that is something that like I don't love that. There's now seems to be endless amounts of parallels in a lot of these products, but it's fine. There's some people that now have a lot longer of a road to complete that rainbow, and it keeps them in it a little bit longer. But yeah, just find what you find is fun. And just
follow your passion.
Yeah, this is a hobby. I keep on trying to remind that to people. Like, zoom out for a little bit. The moments become stressful. Take a pause. That's also fine in any stage of life. Take a pause, recharge, reapproach it. You know, find a different way that you want to approach it differently. You know, no one has to say, "Well, you went on this path. You have to stay on it forever and at the same pace." Don't.
I agree. All right, we're gonna wrap up, but before we do, what's next for Sasquatch?
Goodness. I think Hobby Slam in June is the next thing. So we have, I'll be one of the Ford Media ambassadors for that, and I'll have my 2 boys with me, and I have a lot of really weird Miami themed ideas for all 3 of us to walk around and talk about.
Hobby Slam's a fun show down in Miami, I think, this time around, and it's going to be fun. And maybe I'll make it down there as well. And of course, in the interim, people can find you on Instagram. I saw Sasquatch.
I saw Sasquatch. That's the handle. Yeah.
Have you ever actually seen Sasquatch, by the way?
I might be him. I don't know.
I mean, it's possible. It's possible. Maybe that is the case. Awesome. Well, Ryan, I appreciate you joining the Geoff Wilson Show for sure. Absolutely. And for everybody out there, just a reminder that you can catch the full-length episodes of these Geoff Wilson shows on YouTube under the Geoff Wilson Show channel on YouTube, also on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. So make sure you are subscribed there as well so you can listen to the Geoff Wilson Show on the go. We appreciate you listening, and we'll see you again next time. Take care.